Hey everyone, I wanted to talk today a little bit about the role of decluttering and just clutter in our worlds and how that affects our mental health, our chronic pain, and our chronic illness conditions. So I know like minimalism is like this hot button topic in our YouTube community and in our world today. And I fall victim as well to these ideas of clean with me videos. And, if you get your house clean a certain way, if you finally get to the point that everything looks perfect, like your life's going to change drastically. And, I think it's alluring, but I think that with especially chronic pain and chronic illness, we often can feel that we fall short of the standard that has kind of been set for us in our world today. And especially if you're busy, if you're working, if you have kids, or if you're just so sick that it's just feeling really impossible for you, you can feel kind of defeated, in a sense. And so what I wanted to think about and talk about were, what does the research say? And obviously, there is a growing body of research that talks about the more cluttered our environment is, the more prone we are to feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and depressed. But also, it's a negative cycle because the more anxious and depressed and sick we are, the more likely we are to have clutter in our environment. So, what do we do? And I think it comes down to this idea of the same with brain retraining, consistent, committed action, and a sense of community engagement and support. So let's think for a moment about ways that we can brainstorm how to have a little bit more of a minimalist lifestyle. Because I think at the root of everything, the less that we have to manage, the less inventory of stuff we have to keep track of, the easier it is to manage our lives and our things. I really love watching The Minimal Mom. I'm not collaborating with her or anything on Facebook, or I mean on YouTube. She's just one of my favorite people to watch on YouTube because she gets into the psychology of minimalism and our belongings and clutter. And she always says it's about what is our inventory. And so I always remember when I worked in retail and I think about doing inventory in the store, and we would have to go around and say, okay, what sold today? And we only wanted to keep on the shelves what looked pretty and what was manageable for us to manage in the storefront. And if we ran out of something and needed more, we could go into the back in our storage room and look at the big inventory boxes and take them down and open them up and figure out what we needed and how many of them we had. But in our house, do we have excess inventory, right? We don't need multiple of everything. It also goes into hypervigilance and fight or flight mode with chronic illness and trauma. We are coming from a state of feeling that our fight and flight and fear response is on. So we are more likely to fall into that pattern of thinking, I need to keep this just in case. What if I need it? What if I'm in this scarcity mindset and maybe I feel like just like I am with my health, I get that way with my belongings. So there's so many reasons that people in our chronic pain, chronic illness community are more likely to end up in a cluttered, overwhelming environment, right? We have fatigue, we have pain, we can't keep up with the chores as much. We might feel more socially isolated and depressed, which then is another barrier. But on top of that, we, from our limbic system knowledge, being in fight or flight, know that we're more prone to holding on to the things, having those emotional reasons that it's difficult to get rid of things, or even the emotional attachment of when I was well, these things cultivated my sense of identity, and getting rid of them feels really sad, like I'm letting go of that part of myself. So let's maybe take some time today and really reflect on that. And let's reflect on how would it feel if looking around you right now, noticing the feeling that comes up when you see your environment and what's around you. And then taking a moment and thinking, how would it feel if you just had less stuff, right? If there was less stuff to keep track of, would it feel less overwhelming to manage it and keep it organized and keep on top of that? And then maybe come up with an action plan on how we can, minimize our belongings, and maybe also who could we ask for help? Do we have a support system we can ask for help? If we do, that's a great start. If we don't, it's just about creating a attainable list of how we're going to tackle the mess that we have. And maybe it's just in much, much smaller baby steps. But rather than, I think the trap many of us fall into is constantly cleaning and reorganizing what we have and feeling that it's so overwhelming and it's this never ending struggle. coming down to minimalism. And again, not just for the aesthetic, not just because it's popular, but because in our community, as we're paring down negative patterns and negative thoughts and behaviors that no longer work for us, maybe it's a really good time to assess our belongings that are no longer serving us, and that our space, if it's not working for us, needs to have a change in those patterns. So what would that look like for you? And maybe just coming up with some ideas of, watching some of those clean with me videos, or watching people that are decluttering and seeing the success that they've had, because I feel like this is such an important topic and we don't touch on it a lot in our brain retraining community, but it's also a sense of our negative identity. And if you're identifying with symptoms and identifying with illness, and then you look around and you identify as being disorganized, or your whole identity becomes, oh, I just can't keep up with this, and look at me, I'm a slob, or I'm lazy, which we know isn't true, but that's what starts to form in our identity. How do we start to challenge that? Those are deep-seated beliefs and negative identities we formed maybe because of chronic pain or illness, that now are impacting other areas of our life, right? And our belief of, oh, I'm not a good mom if I'm messy, or I'm not a good, housekeeper. I can't have people over to cultivate this sense of social engagement because I'm embarrassed of what my house looks like. That's worsening our chronic pain or illness journey and our ability to have social engagement, which in polyvagal theory is so important. If we're not able to address those factors, right, then what is that leading to for us in terms of mental health and outcomes long term? So these are all things that I think we can do a deeper dive into in our community, and definitely as part of my healing course, there's going to be future discussions around this, because I think it's such a really wonderful and important topic to explore about our healing. So anyway, tell me in the comments below what you think. Do you think that it is an important topic to cover? Do you think that, minimalism or clutter or any of these topics are relevant in your healing journey and your sense of your identity? Anyway, hope you're having an awesome day, and I'd just love to get some discussion going on this topic. So enjoy.